I'm sorry, just say Beth. Beth.
Lucas on.
Dave?
You ready, Dave? All right, let's call the meeting to order, and can we have a roll call?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
No, I'm not sure of anything. Here I'm worried about her and her timing, and okay, sorry. Okay, roll
Yeah.
call. Roger.
Here.
Mary Dell. Here. Beth Graham's here. Rod Portal. Sarah Thorson. Here. Ann Rude. I'm here. Luke Russell.
I'm here.
Awesome.
All right,
We have a full board.
okay, good, full board and a quorum.
Thank you for joining, Luke.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Happy
the
to be
next-
here.
Disassociated voice. Now, we'll move on to citizens' comments on matters within the board's jurisdiction, and
Not on the agenda. We should put that on there.
We should.
what do you mean?
So if they're on the agenda, then
Oh,
they
yeah,
can talk during the
yeah.
agenda, yeah.
On citizens' comments on matters within the board's jurisdiction, it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I'll make that change.
Okay, very good. And we have a 3-minute limit, and we'd like to have everybody try hard to stay within that 3 minutes.
We have someone here?
And do we have anybody that has anything they'd like to bring it to the board's attention? Teresa, first.
All right, so Teresa Whistler, 614 South Broadway Ave for Heroes Esteem Center. I just wanted to comment, basically providing a status on the tree stand project. So since that was all approved, we were waiting on a community grant from the foundation, which was eventually granted to us in full. So we're happy to report we had $2,000 awarded for the project. However, the trees were all gone at that point.
Oh, no.
They may come in the fall, but if we don't get the number 9, we don't want to plant some and then go back and have everybody tasked to repeat the whole project for the second load. So if we don't have 9 that come in the fall, we'll do 9 in the spring, and they'll definitely have them ordered for us in the spring. But it will happen. We have the money. It's just it was bad timing to pull it
Yeah.
off for this spring. So thank you.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Thanks, Teresa.
Good job, thank
Yep,
you.
thank you for all your hard work on that, too.
Oh, and you too, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Comments? No comments. Okay, very good. We'll move on to the action items. Approve the consent agenda and the minutes of the June 4th, 2025 meeting. Do we have a motion?
I moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Okay, consent agenda and the minutes have been approved. We'll move into the discussion items. We're going to start off with park projects and budget updates, including an Arbor Day date from Mike. And Mike, we have you down here for the following one on the update on the conversion of the Field School Park tennis courts. You want to just cover them all at one time?
Yeah, you bet. So as far as projects going on, we were, I think I missed last Parks Board meeting. We were able to get in tennis courts and dig up those bad spots, and we repaved them. I met with Jeff yesterday, and we've got to go in there and do a little grinding, smooth things out. I think it's going to come out good. We're going to try it. Oh, and we have to cut holes for the new posts. And we're going to try and get all that done. The date that the resurfacing crew can come in would be August 4th, and we have a water project starting July 15th, so we're going to try and get what we need to get done there done prior to that, just so that we don't get crunched for time. We're going to use some of the Parks Project money to get new nets for the tennis courts and the pickleball nets, and we're going to do the labor for getting the new posts put in for the nets. So that's tennis courts. Pride Park, we got the final budget back for what the estimate would be to do all that work that was in the concept drawings. It was about $82,000.
Which concept was chosen?
It was kind of, everybody kind of had input on it. I incorporated that. I talked with the Garden Club, and we kind of put it all together. So it's kind of everybody's comments, and there weren't a lot, on what was there. There's still room for, we're still,
Did you get an email from Sherry this week?
what's that?
Did you get an email from Sherry this week? Because we met on
I got,
Monday.
she sent me some, pictures of some concrete, and she sent me a sample of some decking that she liked for the
Because we talked about a
seats.
couple things to change, like putting a electrical outlet in.
Sure, I didn't get that,
Okay, she
but those
should have
are
sent one to
easy.
you.
We're along, we have plenty of time to adapt, whatever, add,
So-
change.
So Mike, would you just overview like everything you're gonna do for that 82K? Because I don't have it in my notes anywhere, and then I can document it.
It would, the east side slab, that's where the benches and the planters are, basically, that slab, the stamped concrete,
Yep,
that would all come out. It would be new colored stamped concrete with kind of a Rock Creek pattern to it. And the concrete that's there, when they did it back then, they used just regular concrete, and then they threw a dye on top of
Right.
it. And a lot of the dye's coming off. And the concrete we're gonna use it'll be
impregnated, right,
in it, so it'll,
Yeah.
okay?
and then, so it'd be new benches, new planters. I think we nixed the light in the design, outlets, and we incorporate sprinkler lines that would go under the concrete and feed each planter,
The planters are gonna be,
made out of, like a textured concrete with some rock, and colored.
okay.
You're not using Davis Brothers for that, are you?
What's that?
The concrete work?
We're not there yet.
Oh, you're
We
not?
don't know.
Okay, because there is a local person that does that kind of work, if you
Yeah.
wanna,
Yeah.
okay.
But right now, you have the concept.
Conceptual,
We
got
did,
you.
and I did pitch into the resort tax as, something to budget for this year. I didn't get any objection. It's not a done deal by any,
Yeah.
we don't know what that's gonna end up, but that's kind of where I'm going with it.
Is that other resort tax money besides the Parks Board budget?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
And so there'll be, lighting under the seats, is that still
yeah, I think we
part
had
of
that
it?
in there.
Okay.
And again, there's a lot of room.
Awesome.
You know, I feel like if we could shore up the money, then we gotta shore up the design, then we get it out. And how we go about doing it, I'm not sure whether we do it all as a one project. It would be over that $80,000 threshold probably, so it would mandatory go out to bid, or if we split it apart and Public Works acts as a general, and we
Yep.
and we would still go get bids,
What's your
those are all
time frame
steps down the
schedule? Is
road.
that a 26 project?
If resort tax and the council bites on it, I look at it as a project this fall after the road closes for the ski hill opens.
Okay,
That's a crucial time.
Mm-hmm.
so like in the
We haven't
down
fitted in
season,
one of those windows.
Yeah.
And if we could, if the money was here and we could get good contractors, because everybody's busy, but I'm hoping for that
Yep.
scenario.
okay, thank you, so I can formalize that.
Right, Clark.
Hey, one more question about Pride Park, that west, pad.
We're not messing with those
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
what I was gonna ask you, that's
I
gonna
mean, I
stay
think
the same.
there's a lot of talk, and it was in our capital improvements plan for bathrooms there, and that would I don't wanna do anything back there until,
Until that's settled.
you know, it'd be bad to throw money in there and then do something different shortly thereafter.
Yep.
Well, and I know that bathrooms had come up in the past there, and at least the garden club was really against that.
Yeah, it's a contentious topic.
I know. And
It's been tossed around
And the garden club does have
And
money to
that's
go
for
towards the project, hopefully
that's for
about
the-
$10,000.
Oh,
the council
nice.
and the town and
you hear
everybody
that,
to figure that out. Moving on, I got the field school courts, I think we're covered on.
I have a question about that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, can I see the contract
Contract
Okay.
for,
the field school part?
I think Jeff's got that.
We don't have that?
I will have a copy of the bid.
Oh, okay, that'd be good.
Yeah, I have that on my computer, I don't have it with me.
That'd be great.
Yeah, they give us a price for the equipment and the resurfacing.
And how much did that come to again?
I think 30,
About 39, 80
39,
for the
yeah.
resurfacing, and then about almost 5 for the nets and hardware.
And that's after the city did their repairs and stuff down there, right? That's just for the contract.
that's just the resurfacing.
Yeah.
Prep,
So the
prep
tennis
work
court,
is on us.
So new nets beyond what the city's gonna buy for now?
What's that?
You mentioned that the city was gonna buy some nets for
Mhm.
tennis and,
If I can swing it, I'm gonna try to do it out of this year's budget, we're kind of on the cusp.
Mhm. Get that money
I might be able to, if not, it'll be
okay.
next year's out of.
We're in Happy New Year as of yesterday.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know.
We've got a little time in June.
No, the money doesn't evaporate, we just
No.
roll it over.
I just would like to get, like,
Call it a
I had a
June,
couple
30th
things I got
project.
today that we'll get on.
okay.
And that one I probably should have, it slipped. through
Sounds
the
like
cracks.
between you and your boss.
So, I can get you a copy of both those, I'll make you email me tomorrow.
I will.
And I'll reply to them. The other thing is, we went up and in preparation for the rehabilitation of the pump track, we cleaned off all the material that was up there from the old pump track. We brought it down to the parking lot. From there, it's gonna get screened and filtered, and screen and filter some other dirt. I put together a set of guidelines for where it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be the same place that it was before, but I made a very strict area they could have as
Footprint.
a staging area.
Okay?
And then,
Excuse me.
I gave them, we've had numerous meetings, and, I think it's gonna go quick. I think they're gonna, stay within the guidelines that I wrote up, so. And if anybody'd like to see those, I don't have them with me, but again, I can get them to you, they're on my computer.
Could you maybe just email those to us?
With that,
Could you just email
Sure.
those to us?
You can send them to Roger if you want. I trust what's going on.
what's that?
She
Maybe
said-
get them
she
to
said,
Roger,
She
yeah.
said, I don't trust you, but she does.
I did.
Um,
No, we should have them, but if you get them to use them.
I'm hoping we're gonna continue some of the work on coal miners here in the month of July. Kind of what we were doing before with trying to get the drainage to move, not make a lake. I think we improved it with what we did last year, but we still have some work to do, so we're gonna be on that. Hopefully, in the course of that, we'll use up the material that's stacked there now, left over from the water project. We did steal a porta potty from the soccer field, and it'll be back on Monday.
There's no events planned there.
So if anybody's wondering why it's not there, it's 'cause it's downtown. And
Well.
it'll be back on Monday, so.
It's the
I mean,
mayor's fault.
it's at city cost, so I think it was really, courteous of you to check in, but I think you get to move it when you need to move it, 'cause you're footing the bill, so.
Well, I just didn't want, I didn't know if there was anything going on up there, and I didn't want to get an
Right.
angry phone call.
Okay,
Willie did manage to get into Rotary Park yesterday and burned up 6 tanks of fuel and the weed whacker, and if you go by there, it looks pretty darn good.
yeah,
Wow.
Wow.
nice.
Great.
So, and finally, the Arbor Day thing, again, I wasn't at the last meeting, I heard you guys picked the 12th, which is fine. I've got places to put some trees on the 12th. Our tree removal guy has shoved me back to the week of the 14th, so we won't be able to plant back where we remove the trees. But I think we've got, 6 trees, or maybe 7, we're gonna put in where we did the FEMA stream bank project down here on 9th and 10th in Cooper. So we'll have holes there to plant trees. I think I have, maybe a half dozen other spots we'll have ready. So we'll put in around 12 or 13 of the 25. I'll hold the other 12 back for the removal project, and we'll just do those later.
What month is that?
What's that?
What month?
I think
is
he's
that?
talking about in 10 days.
I mean,
No,
I made a little flyer
not next
today just off of the
10 days,
template
not
off
this
the
week,
internet.
oh, yeah.
They pass that around and scribble on it if you wanna change anything.
That's awesome.
I was-
Yeah, that
I was
looks
hoping
great.
I'd get one of the ones from last year, I never had.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm so
But
bad
that-
with my
but that-
personal email,
I did
everyone,
look at a few minutes,
FYI.
so that's
Awesome.
good.
It looks great.
So it's next
Good
weekend?
job.
Well, if you go online, there's a template, you just put your words in. Or I use some of their words too.
And Mike, are you looking for volunteers then to help with the planning?
Yeah, I want people to show up, and we're gonna try and do that pruning
Okay.
workshop there.
So
On
at
the same
Rotary
date?
Park,
12,
anytime?
10 o'clock, some, or is that the wrong one?
That one doesn't have a time yet, but,
Oh, this gave you the wrong one.
okay, rendition
That-
number 2,
That's been edited.
okay.
This goes away, and that's,
See this note, Beth?
yeah,
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
yeah.
okay. Awesome.
So, and I'm gonna try and get those up around town and on Facebook and.
So, 12th of
website.
July, 10
Oh,
a.m.,
yeah,
meet
round up
Rotary.
the same people you rounded up last year, and tell them to be there at 10.
Do we need to bring tools or anything?
We'll have tools, it'll be the same as last year, we'll
I
have
have
all the
good
holes,
attitude.
we'll have everything right there.
Okay.
Show up and do the
Did-
work.
Mike will be
you-
reading the proclamation because I'm already committed that
Okay.
until afternoon that day, so.
We're
Okay.
supposed to have a proclamation, I think.
Yeah,
for
that's
the
an
month.
Arbor Day requirement, I believe.
Do you have the proclamation?
We're gonna take last year, well, no, I don't. but
Do
we're-
you need it? Do you want me to get it for you? Okay.
Last year's would be great if we just fixed the date in it, 'cause
Okay.
the date in last year's was wrong, but other than that,
And then, do you want me to pull the Facebook post from last year, if there's any verbiage that would be helpful for you regarding tools,
Yeah,
et cetera?
If you can do any and all of you, if you can do Facebook, do word of mouth, everything, I'm gonna get some flyers up tomorrow.
So if she got you a
I don't think we need the
blurb,
numbers that we had last year,
Then
but
she
you
can
can't
have
have
her work
too
with-
many people.
No.
Danae?
Danae.
Oh, I don't have to
And-
do it?
And are you gonna try to have them
Well, you can pull up what you
state
did
and
and
send
Danae can
to?
update it.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna do everything.
Gonna get all
Oh,
that?
did you-
We're gonna have all the materials, same as last year.
Okay.
Everything will be,
You know,
there'll be a
deputy
tree,
city clerk,
everything you need to do it, and a hole.
But we got about 12 people right here.
I'll actually be around.
So,
That sounded kind of.
It's a Saturday.
Half-hearted.
Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you.
We're gonna put 6 trees in down at the FEMA stream bait project.
Okay.
And then I have to find the other sites. I have to look at where we've removed some of the smaller trees, and just go look and make sure there's good spots. I think we can come up with 6, and then we'll save some, because we're taking with the arborists were taking out 6 big trees.
Yeah.
So there we'll want, you know, to
Right.
plant back, so I want
Nice.
at least 6 left over.
Will you be taking out that
So
big,
Barb, what are you doing on the 12th of July?
will you be taking out that big spruce tree on the corner of,
Yes, the
16th?
red one,
Yeah,
that's going away.
the red spruce.
Tennis.
You know, the people that live there are part-time, you know,
That guy calls me about once every 2 weeks and asks me when we're gonna remove the trees.
oh, he does?
Yeah.
Okay, well, he knows he's gonna water it then, right?
I think what happened to that tree was it had a bunch of material stacked up.
Yeah, I think
From the
from the
flood,
flood.
and that's what killed it.
Yeah.
Oh.
But, no, that one's going away.
Okay.
That's one on the big list.
So how many trees will we try to get planted?
25, right?
Well,
Saturday.
total is 25, but on Saturday, it'll probably be in the neighborhood of 13.
Okay.
Okay.
Will some be at Rotary Park, or are we just meeting?
I don't think we need any.
No,
No,
I
we don't need
that's
any
what I
more.
was
We're
wondering.
just meeting there.
Okay.
And I think some will go in Finn Park later, after those trees come out of there.
Excuse me.
The bee tree
Yeah.
that's on the corner, that was identified as a public safety concern, and then there's a big one kind of next to another one that's,
Owl tree?
it doesn't look very good.
Yeah.
And that was, those two are coming down, so we'll probably plant 4 back there, I'm thinking.
So we have deciduous and conifers.
They're all,
Deciduous.
we got five species, 25 trees, and I believe there's 2 species of maple, a linden, a topless cottonwood, and honeyloaves.
Okay.
So,
Well, same size, 7 gallon, or is that
it's whatever the 15 gallon.
15 gallon, that's what we had last year.
And so that's Arbor Day, and I spoke with the arborists about doing a pruning workshop a while
Later.
back. He was
Yeah,
all,
July's not a good time, right?
what's that?
July's not a good time.
Well, I think we'll still just do it.
You can prune
Okay.
July,
It's educational, I mean,
no problem.
and he was all for it then. I reached out to him with the date and the time, and I haven't heard back from him, but I think we'll be good with that too. And I think that'll be a draw.
Yeah.
Can we tape that? Can we, use our iPhone and
Sure.
record that
Mhm.
and then post it?
And I think I'm sure I'm missing something, but I think that's it.
Look, Sarah, are you gonna,
I
Help.
don't think I'm gonna be there.
but I'm wondering, are you gonna help with distributing the information or getting it on Facebook or something?
Yes, yeah, yep, I'll
Maybe-
pull some verbiage from last year and I'll either work with Danae or post it myself.
Okay. Red Lodge Buzz or whatever it's called.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. We still have a few little park projects that are like waiting in the wings, like the resealing of the skate park and dealing with that east side
Yeah.
there, but those are, we'll
So-
get to them.
I have a question. I wasn't here last month, but I understand that it was approved to recommend to the city that Frisbee Golf could expand their course. Do you feel that they understand what their next step is, which I think is to do a resolution with the city,
Well,
right?
is this
I'm not
legit?
sure. Tom Foley reached out to me yesterday and wanted to have a meeting. I just
Are we getting off the agenda here, Beth?
No, I don't, well, possibly, but I just, okay, if you feel it's gonna be covered later,
Well, I think we can talk a little bit about that when we get to the, item number 4. But I
well,
think-
that's specific to the tennis court
Yeah.
area.
But they're somewhat related, but I think if you bring it up right now, we should probably agendize for a
Okay,
future meeting.
but I didn't know, so you spoke with Tom, so as a maintenance, public works thing, I think there is a little more formality with that than like resurfacing an area that's already a footprint at the
I
tennis
think
court.
if they're expanding it, definitely.
Right,
Um,
so
And
if any of us has conversation with that group, I think it needs to be made that there is a formalized process and that we're gonna try to identify that for all projects here on out.
I can add that land use and planning is talking about it on it at, and do you have your, is that 10 o'clock?
Tuesday.
As far as our next steps, I would say yes, they know
Yeah,
what
10
they
o'clock
need to
Tuesday.
do.
They do,
But
Yeah.
okay.
But let's stay on the agenda, we're getting off.
But I think she was bringing it up as
I'm
a
bringing it up
potential
as Mike,
project.
Okay.
Mike Park's project,
Okay.
that they know that there's a bigger picture
Okay.
thing that has to happen, okay.
All right, no, just while you're on the topic of Arbor Day, the trees we planted last year, I think so far has been a real success.
Pretty good.
I think we've lost maybe 2 or 3 trees out of the 42 or 41 that we planted. And, they all look well, and I think a lot of that goes to, you guys were on top of it as far as watering the trees.
Yeah,
last year.
we're gonna put the watering truck back together tomorrow and start watering.
Yeah.
That's on the agenda.
Just wanted to give you a kudos on that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
You've done well.
And thank Willie too,
Oh, yeah.
he spent a lot of time
What's the
watering
fact
those
behind
trees.
the scenes?
Okay, is that it, Mike?
Yep.
Okay, well, now let's move on to item number 4. Discussion and action to pardon me?
Skip 3.
Oh,
We
it's
good?
got
No, we're good, he talked about it,
Yeah,
you're
we
right.
included that.
Oh,
Yeah, you did it all.
next
Yep.
steps, okay, gotcha, okay,
Okay.
we're done,
All right,
sorry.
item 4, discussion action to recommend to the city Coal Miners Memorial Park as a potential site for the Fort Tennis Court complex contingent upon engineering feasibility, geotechnical drainage, et cetera. And then the discussion, including the outline of the next steps to follow. This has come up, we've had several meetings, we've talked about the whole project, the pickleball, conversions over at, Field School Park. And then, the second phase of that project is hopefully gonna be the construction of a Fort Tennis Court complex. And we have talked about various different sites through the course of this, discussion, and it has been brought, I think we have collectively decided that probably the best site we've seen so far is gonna be at Coal Miners Park. I think there was a request that we officially make a recommendation to select Coal Miners Park as the site. However, I feel that's a little bit hasty at this point. I think there's still some, issues that need to be resolved, probably more in the planning of the project, and that we should probably talk about that as being, the conceptual or the potential site based on some studies that need to be done. And we've talked about this geotechnical, I think there's concerns about the drainage, and the effect that would have, in the neighborhood and around that area.
So before we go down the road, can I just clarify something? Being that the piece of land in question is not designated as park property. So does it really make sense that this board is even, why are we even discussing it or bringing it up if that is not part of
Is that-
designated park?
And do we know that for sure?
That's what Mayor said
It is not part of
last
the park right now.
month.
Well, if it's not park space,
I thought I asked you that question.
No, it's
Before.
not part of the
It's
park.
not, it's not officially designated as
No,
a park.
it's not part of the park, it's not.
What is it?
city-owned land.
City-owned land.
It was,
I think Tom explained it last time, it was excluded for some, I don't know if it was tax purposes.
Well,
or-
there's a whole block, there's a couple of blocks there, and it wasn't that it was excluded, it wasn't identified previously as a park, but there's a discussion, and I apologize, because I almost feel like I want to rewind just a little bit on the previous conversation, which I feel is part of this. Let me jump ahead to Tuesday, because Tuesday, council has on their agenda to come in of, how are we gonna do this? And there's all and some of them are easy. Uncle Milky's is gonna be coming up, which I think is gonna be, that's the family's preference and name, and it seems to be getting some good traction. Same time, I think that ought to come through the planning board. Lions Park, that big grant came through, and they're talking about putting in the ice skating rink cooling thing down there. And it feels like we're getting cart ahead of the horse, but at the same time, we've kind of got to talk, and there's all sorts, so field school. You know, I felt really good about field school. The tennis group and the pickleball court folks came together and talked, and there was a picture that came out, and everybody was like, good, and that's where it is. And I'm like, yeah. And then they came, my recollection is they came through this group as well.
You did.
And then my email blew up as they're scheduling to get this resurfacing in here, and the pickleball folks have gone out and got the money, and I'll tell you, from my perception, it's like, I thought we were all on the same page. We said, go raise your money and we'll do it. From a public works standpoint, this is basically
Well, sorry,
maintenance.
can you clarify what you mean by do it?
As far as the layout of what we have. So
Where?
there's like Field School
Okay,
Park,
at
which
Field.
is 3 courts, and specifically, there was a tennis-only court,
Yep.
a combination tennis, pickleball court, and then 4 dedicated pickleball courts, which is very much part of their fundraising.
Yeah.
In an existing footprint.
In an existing footprint, so like I said,
That
from a
makes a
public,
big difference.
from a public works standpoint, this is just maintenance.
Yep.
And so there's one thing I can say, hey, yeah, do it, and I'll tell you from a city standpoint, guys, thank you for putting together the money, and like I said, I felt like we were all on the same page, and then suddenly I've got a couple of different groups coming in, it's like, oh, this feels like, so Field School Park, Coal Miners Park, Lions Park, and there's this whole, we've got to get this process down. So that's what we're going to be talking about at
Mhm.
Tuesday, and then take it back, because ultimately a lot of that stuff is council's purview. But then, now we're back to Sarah's question, which is, when does Parks View get in? So this land isn't Parks land yet. Is it out of whack to get Parks Board input and thought process?
Well,
I don't feel like it is.
well, Dave, I think.
I just want to keep everybody happy and get to the right answer.
No,
I think it's worth a discussion, but as far as like I have a pretty strong opinion about it, but I don't know that even matters if, like, we could make a recommendation, I guess, on behalf of it, but if we can't vote on what we think, I don't know, I guess the whole process, I think, is really confusing right now, because even if we vote, then it could go to city, and city could just do something totally different than the
Sure.
Parks Board
They
recommendation,
can,
you know?
and that's, now you're getting into who has an input versus who
Right.
has a vote, which is always a reality, but just because
But
you don't have a vote, I don't know that means we eliminate the input, because the value of the Parks Board is to have the input to help us make better decisions.
So,
Okay.
so I'd like to table number 4,
Okay,
because I think there's some bigger discussion. And I think of what we wanted to do with item 6, about a comprehensive parks plan, is important, because I have a little bit of input to put down about this, because I feel the same way. I feel like there is a lot of stuff vying for valuable space, and we need, if we're gonna make recommendations, we need to have our users go through a similar process. Mike points out, you know, very well, and Mayor, that the resurfacing of the Field School Park area is a little bit different than creating new space. It's a lot different, actually. And so, then it was like, well, I know we've been criticized by the community, or I've heard personally that we've been criticized because we don't seem to have a master plan for how we're gonna do things. So when we have stuff come at us, what is our plan?
And I
do
have,
you want to make a motion to table item 4?
I make a motion to table item 4.
I second that, because I feel like there's something in the bylaws that I want to bring up related to that whole plan.
We have a second.
Okay.
too.
All right.
All those,
Second, yeah, yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay,
Sorry.
so the discussion though is, to come back to that, how we could finish this thought though, is I think as our job as an advisory board, and Luke, I think you mentioned this in an email to me after a couple meetings ago, that let's get to the point, if we're going to have a user group present an area, we need to at least give them some guidance and not talk about it for 8 months and not get anywhere, that we can move on to something that's, you know, either no or it has possibility with contingencies. And I think soccer field was a great example of that, because we had phased approaches to look at. With that said, we'll move
So
on.
I think what you're saying is there needs to be a system that,
Well, and I would like to share with
Everybody-
you what soccer field went through, because nobody was here on that
Yeah.
board.
well,
Sarah, you might have been.
I think at the very end.
Let's put that down as a future agenda item then.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
this is kind of a step backwards,
okay.
but on that resurfacing project
You're talking about field school?
at Field School Park and the layout that we talked about, a dedicated tennis, a combination court, and a dedicated pickleball space, we have that slated for August 2nd right now. August 4th.
August 4th, yeah,
Missed it by 2 days.
that's right.
This is our last meeting that Parks Board has before we do that.
Mm-hmm.
Am I incorrect in my recollection that we were kind of all on the same page and going that direction? Did I miss something?
No.
Or
I think.
do I have this board's blessing to move forward with that plan? And I believe there's gonna be some additional conversation that I'm encouraging, where if there's some temporary tape that's not a slip hazard or something that they can do,
For an additional court for.
for an additional tennis court, tentatively, we can do that, but it does not make sense to me from a financial standpoint, aside from somebody else who's collected the money and paid for it. If this is what it's gonna look like, that's what we build it at,
Mhm.
and then we figure out how to do a temporary marking on top of that to
Mhm.
get some additional utilization out of it. We don't do something else with the plan in 2 years from now, we're gonna come back and change it, or 5, or 1, or however long it takes to get the rest of that money to do another thing. And I will feel better proceeding if I feel like I heard that properly from this board.
Okay, so my question is, when you have a project that can be achieved in August, and you have a project that needs to go through phases that are out 4 years, one user group needs to be understandable that tennis or the other user group has need for that space until they have, because high school's gonna say, can't give up tennis program at all, while a future complex is being considered. So it's still conversionable, right? Is it convertible?
Well, that's the part that's the discussion, because currently they've had 2 courts, plus an extra space you could bat a ball around. So the reality is, they will have exactly the same thing going forward that they have, actually a little bit better, because there's a third net going in there.
Mhm.
Now, whether there's lines or not, to me, that's something to look at, but that's just
Okay,
temporary.
Well, that's a temporary fix.
It's a holdover, because we acknowledge it's gonna take us more time.
Exactly.
I think part of the fear is the tennis folks are afraid of 2 things. A, this is a big project, it's gonna take lots of money. What if it doesn't happen? Well, we have missed out on an opportunity, or we're losing something. And I think a reassurance that the pickleball folks, once that's done, are still on board with helping drive that tennis initiative. And I feel good about all of those things. Mr. Chair, there was a hand from the audience.
I was just gonna correct that the tennis team did use all 3 courts last fall, even with the divot in there. So they did play on all 3, not just
And if they play on that third net now, are they not in a safer and a better position than they were last fall? Because
Yeah. and
now
especially
it's a paint that they don't like as opposed to a hole that they're gonna slip in.
Okay, sorry, ask
The-
that
the-
question again.
To me, the fact that it's smooth
Yeah,
is better than a divot,
yeah,
no matter
yeah.
what the color of paint and stuff there's underneath it. So I don't feel like we're downgrading them. I do, as I talk to,
So we're not just
Yeah.
lining it out, though, for the future pickleball and ignoring that it can be used as tennis, is that what you're saying?
correct.
Okay.
We're accommodating that tennis can still be played. Now,
Okay.
there's some discretion about how that's gonna be, and I think for that third court to be lines, we've gotta figure out how we do that without destroying the pickleball stuff. And I think it can be done. There was some concerns that Lindsay had, that sometimes that tape is slick, or some other things that, I think there's some discussions that we may be able to figure something out between now and the fourth, but,
Yeah.
but I just, the same problem we're having at council is, hey, let's figure out how we're gonna handle city land, but by the way, we've got 5 things in motion right now, that we have to be, we can't put everything on pause for a year while we figure this out.
And we've already made a statement that really what the work is going on over at Field School Park is a maintenance project.
Okay.
And so I think, you know, a lot of it's gonna fall in the lap of Mike, and all of it's gonna fall in your lap, Mike. And, you know, it depends on, maybe there needs to be a little research on that type of temporary, lines that can be put down, as opposed to having another
I'm
color
not
on it.
gonna be, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest, between now and the fourth, with a big water project starting and everything else, I'm not gonna be researching tape.
No, and
I'll be happy if somebody else does.
And my understanding is, we're gonna go forward with those 1, 2, 3 court refinishing, as I have understood we've all been talking
Yes.
about. Because the temporary solution that we put on to help make that third court usable, whatever it is gonna be, if we can go that route, has to be something that's on, it's not an instead of, it's if it was the tape, if it was, and that's, I don't think any of that interferes with what we're doing on the fourth. I guess that's my comment.
No, I don't think so
The
either.
plan moves forward.
I was just gonna say that, yes, all of the background you gave about everybody moving forward together, I think everything is pretty good, it's just come down to a couple of things in the specs, from my perspective. And so that's why I've continued to ask for the bids and the contract documents, and so we can make sure.
And that's publicly available information, so you can have
I
access to
haven't been
it.
able to get
Yeah.
it.
Okay, we'll get it.
Yeah, I'll send
Mike
you an
has it,
email,
we'll get
Mike.
it through.
Yeah.
So-
It's,
So the colors and the lines are the 2 remaining issues.
So do we have a pickleball person here right now?
Yeah, Jeff is here.
And you are,
I said,
no,
Oh,
you are
Jeff Sheets.
Jeff, okay. So Jeff, I think what we're getting at is your future focus gets to happen sooner than the tennis complex, and they have a lot of open-ended land and placement issues that have to go through city. But is it my understanding that it's still going to be a multi-use area up there? And that the future might hold that pickleball has more dedicated space, but that isn't happening right away?
Well, I'm confused about the
No.
space. We're talking about Field School.
Talking about Field School Park,
Okay, so.
Within the footprint.
right?
And I don't, if I heard the question properly, the plan is, and if he holds up his picture, just so we can talk about it, that's not gonna change in the future. So when you say more pickleball space, I don't see, like, they're not gonna tear up another tennis court and turn it into pickleballs after the tennis courts come in. Is that the question?
That's a
Yeah.
completed project right
So
there.
we have 4 dedicated.
Yep,
Okay. We have the tennis court here, we have 2 with outlines of pickleball on here, and then 1 dedicated tennis.
so what about the fact that tennis has used 3 tennis courts to practice and play?
Right. So these are the 3 tennis nets, they will remain.
Okay,
And what we've done is we are purchasing pickleball nets and poles that are removable.
yep,
So
okay,
we'll be burying a sleeve so that when Lindsay
Yep.
has her practice, you pull up those 4 nets. And she has this. So this is where they would be putting some sort of a temporary
Gotcha,
outline for a tennis court, so they can use that for practice.
gotcha,
And,
okay.
and before we put that solution in, just to be clear, it is my expectation, understanding that tennis court signs off and says, yes, that's gonna work. So if we've gone out and found a tape, and they say, oh, no, that's not gonna work, because somebody hits it and their foot's gonna fly up from it, yeah, okay, so before we put that temporary solution in, it's gonna have tennis court sign off on it. But it's gonna be a solution that sits on top of this
Gotcha,
long-term plan,
Mhm.
as opposed to table this for now and change it in the future. That's not where we're going.
gotcha,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
Is there a spec that the,
So the color, the red is an issue and the tape.
Oh.
But it sounds like maybe Lindsay has identified some tape, but the red.
And the red, to me, as I've gone out and looked, I understand, I had a trip in Utah and I was going on pickleball.
Oh, you did?
I stopped at every pickleball
Yeah.
court I can find on the way. The red is because that you can't play there, so you can't do something there.
The
And I'm like, oh, it
kitchen-
makes sense that it's the kitchen, but you can't do something there. It's like, okay, I get that it's
Right.
red. And my 2 cents, and I'm not a tennis high school coach or anything, but to me, the reality exists that those kids may encounter that someplace else, and to me, it's kind of a pro that they will have seen it someplace before.
Well, the reality is whether this is, because all that outline is gonna be a medium green. Now, whether we don't have red here, it will be a medium green, so it's still gonna be 2 different colors. Now, that's a detriment to pickleball. It's the same thing as if we had 2 different colors on the tennis court. It's very confusing. So this is why we're having only one color on the tennis court. We're not having 2. And we're having the 2 colors here because it's more beneficial when you're playing.
yep,
Yep.
And I think, and I've talked to Lindsay about this, about the colors, and we've talked about that we would have the posts that are removable. Originally, we weren't going to do that. As you see right here, these are fences. The original plan was that we'd have 4-foot fences to divide the pickleball courts. We are not gonna put those in as of yet, because then that would interfere again with Lindsay using this as one of her 3 tennis courts.
It's compromise. Yeah, this whole thing is a result of a compromise. I think one of the dangers for tennis is that, which you mentioned before, is that project isn't for sure gonna happen. I mean, there's a lot of work that has to happen.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a gamble on the tennis side of this project that.
and we need to be sensitive to that, that's all.
We need to be sensitive of it, but we need to also have a working compromise in the meantime.
So as far
That
as
everybody
this
can live with.
August 4th, do we know what the next steps are? Like, do we need to do those 2 things need to be decided before the color and the tape?
Yeah.
And so does somebody know, or is
My
somebody
understanding
keeping
is
on
it's
top
all
of
been
that?
decided, and it basically matches that poster that's already there. That's,
Did you
pardon?
hear that from Lindsay?
No, that's what I'm saying. But to me, I thought it was decided
No,
months ago when we all had here, and that's why I had a confusion. And so,
yeah.
to me, it was kind of like, that's where we all were. How do we make it work going forward? And that,
What does Lindsay
Can
want?
I say something? Why are we leaving this up to Lindsay?
I didn't say we were. No, that's what I said. To me, the temporary solution on how we can make that court work, we want her input and stuff in. But the base level, to me, is decided months ago.
Matter of fact, the pay has already been ordered. We've already paid half, we paid 50% down. We've come up with that money, we've already given that to the contractor.
But you know what, but Parks Board hasn't had any input on that, so,
The city, wait a minute.
We did
paint
have.
color, paint color?
We went down there,
We
we all
had-
went down there and looked at that, you were there.
Right, and I wanted to see
No,
what
well,
the
but,
other
and that, you guys, the tennis and pickleball courts came together with this, and we had that drawing.
Yes, we had that drawing, I've got it on the computer.
That's not a new drawing.
That was,
That's-
no, that was brought to the.
And that's the part where I got confused, because I thought we were all on the same page 4 months ago.
I don't remember voting on that, on anything.
No, we weren't,
What-
we weren't, it was the outside
I
meeting.
know, that mayor, that Lindsay and
Look,
Mark
you
had
know
a
what?
conversation.
We got too many conversations going on here,
That's
let's
fine.
have one conversation at a time. So you have a question, Barb, or a comment, or Mike does?
No,
No, my recollection is when we met down there, when the contractor was there, everyone was there, you were there, I was there. I think that picture was there.
Right.
You were holding it up.
Yeah.
So I felt like we were all on the same
and I
page.
said the red, when you mentioned it, doesn't work. at that time, and I have, ever since that time. But what I suggested to the mayor was have Lindsay, I'm not the.
Lindsay and Martha are still getting together to chat. They have touch base,
Right.
but it is my hope and goal when we're all done with this is community facing. We have different interests and bodies working together to get someplace. Because if I can't get this working, Frisbee and tennis is gonna be a hoot, you know, and soccer and baseball and everything else. And so to me,
Well, I
this is
don't-
kind of the easy
It's
one.
not you're not responsible solely for that,
No.
first of all. You keep
Yeah.
saying so I just wanna,
Okay.
just that there needs to be discussion. I don't feel like we ever voted on specifically paint colors. Am I missing something?
Well, you know what, I don't think we did a specific vote on.
Is
paint
that
colors,
something
but-
that we
but
would?
that design was brought to us a couple meetings ago. It was
And
brought
I
forward
think
to us.
that's a great area for me to, when people are bringing stuff to us and just talking at us without a vote, does that mean because we didn't vote and nobody chimed up to say anything at that
There wasn't
moment
a
that
vote.
they're?
No, there wasn't a vote on it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go back, I'm gonna go back to, the working relationship that, they were 3 tennis courts originally. One needed help. Pickleball is growing, tennis is growing. There's an identity to put 4 courts somewhere and for you guys to get 6 dedicated in the future, but not till then. So those court areas need to work for both parties. And, I guess that needs to be worked out. That's really, we're an advisory board. I'm just gonna advise that, Jeff, the last thing I would want is that pickleball says, well, we got approved for everything and we don't care about tennis anymore.
We've never said that.
Okay, so as long as there's a cooperative working relationship, and if there is a paint color that prevents the high school from using that court,
I don't understand that. If we don't paint it red, it will be green. So what's the difference between?
And I don't think it's to prevent them from, it's like, we'd
I
rather
don't know
not have the
I
red.
don't
Well,
know tennis regulations. And I've played on a lot of pickleball courts where they're not colored. That's your premier color, right?
Sure.
That's like what you want, kitchen to be red. But the whole country's been doing makeshift pickleball lines and no color and all that. So can it be done later?
The whole idea was, when we first started, we wanted 4 dedicated courts. We went out to the public, the public to get donations. We got donations based on the fact we would have 4 dedicated courts without lines. The problem is, when you get multiple lines on a piece of geography, it affects tennis and it
Yep.
also affects pickleball.
Right.
So we wanted to have 4 courts that only had pickleball lines on them. And that's why we're having, on the tennis court, we are not having pickleball lines on this tennis court.
Because right now what we have is 3 of the middle courts,
We have,
which means everybody
Yeah.
has 3 that has
Okay,
less than perfect
But then
lines.
it does reduce the tennis courts to 2, correct?
No, it just, your third tennis court has paint in it that you wouldn't have if it was a dedicated tennis court.
in the reality
Oh, I
is,
thought you said they were still using it.
they're not playing they're not playing matches on these because they have to have, according to Lindsay, you have to have 4 courts. So it's not like they're playing some other school. This is for practice.
Oh, okay, I
Right,
didn't know that
so
either.
having, and what they
That's
have done in the
very
past, and Lindsay, according to Lindsay, this was the patch right here, that was the asphalt that was in bad shape or redone. So this service can be much better. They were having trouble, and it's dangerous because it was unlevel there. It's gonna be a much better surface. They can still practice the
Right.
game, they can still practice, serving, that sort of thing. It's just they won't have dedicated lines.
Okay.
They'll have,
It will not have
temporary.
permanent dedication.
yes,
So-
they'll have temporary that they can roll out
Barb, if
on it.
Lindsay's got issue with that for use of space, it'd be good if she appeared or brought her new feelings to somebody like Maples, I guess.
Well, you know, I think we have to understand, a compromise is a compromise, and nobody's gonna be 100% happy with a compromise. And this is to kind of get us over till we get to the point where we can build 4 dedicated tennis courts. You know, in the meantime, it's not gonna be perfect for tennis, it's not gonna be perfect for pickleball at this point. It's just kind of a compromise that we can get by with for the next few years.
So I can ask one thing too. So the tennis season is what, 8 weeks long?
Oh, no.
What is her tennis season?
No, it's-
Oh,
Our-
our
yeah.
tennis season.
The tennis season.
Probably.
It's about 6 to 8 weeks.
Out of the year, they're using that third court. The rest of the time, it's pickleball. We had 26 people playing this morning.
No, but there's
What-
people that play tennis in this town.
Yeah, but
They'll be able to
there's
play-
still 2 tennis courts.
In the
They have to
summer.
play on it.
There's still
Yeah.
2 there.
Is there an action for us in this moment?
No, because we tabled item 4 here, and,
Mayor had something to,
um,
so what are you doing on Tuesday? I'm sorry.
So land use and planning is basically dealing with this, hey, how do we smooth this process out? And, oh, by the way, we have a grundle of projects that are living and in progress right now. This, to me, is the most immediate one, because it's a month out, and quite frankly, we've literally got it scheduled and paid for and the money collected for it. And,
Okay.
yeah, so what I was hoping for, we aren't to yet. It may happen after Lindsay and Martha are able to get together and talk, and like I said, I wasn't at the meeting when everybody was down there, but I thought I'd been to all of the other ones since then, and I got caught off guard, because I thought everything was fine and dandy, and then and I get that in an ideal world, we wouldn't have another color of paint in the middle of our tennis match. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have the center one where there's lines that are for you and not for us, and vice versa. And so what I
because
remember,
compromise.
yeah, with the
It's a
compromise,
compromise.
here's one that you get just the way you want, here's one we get just the way we want, here's one in the middle that can go for either, and by the way, we'll also make it so you can use this for tennis courts on there. And then when I first heard about it, it was like, oh, but that tape is problematic, or is it, the idea that didn't make sense to me, and to Sarah's point, it's not, well, and this is a maintenance, so is this really me? But to Sarah's point,
Okay.
there was a part of it, it didn't make sense to do this big level project knowing we're gonna dig it up and redo it in a couple of years. You do it the way it is now, and then you figure out what's the best way to make it accommodate between now and then.
Yes.
And I think that is now the next conversation. How do we do this so that it works for you? Our goal was to make it so you guys could use this, but without giving up the pickleballness of it, which we've used as a selling point as we've gone out and collected $40,000.
Well, we're not hearing any complaints from pickleball with the existing plan. The plan is, the compromise is not ideal for tennis, particularly the high school tennis team. My understanding is they didn't have official meets there in the past, have they?
No.
And so they're still not gonna be able to have official meets until at such time they have a fourplex tennis court. So I think, it's a compromise, it's not ideal, it's what has been brought to us, we've talked about it. And I think we need to move forward on it. But I'd like to say that this is the longest discussion I've ever seen on a tabled
Well, I think that goes
tabled
back
item.
to, and I want to apologize to you, I think we've been talking about this for weeks, months, because we only
Yeah.
meet monthly, but just apologize to both of you parties that I don't think we have a clear outline of how we're making decisions. And so I feel like we get information and then it comes up, in a roundabout way based on something else, and then we end up arguing and discussing it. So I apologize that if it feels like it's drawn out, I think we have some work to do to really define how
And that's back to your
those decisions
master
are.
plan to help.
Exactly.
We have to know what the 30,000-foot
Hence
level looks like.
why we were tabling the conversation.
And so back at you guys, that communications has broken down in this arena as well.
Between you,
Yeah.
between tennis.
Pickleball and tennis,
Well,
yeah.
and I think from my observation, and I've seen that there's some personality stuff in there, which is specific why I pulled Lindsay and Martha in to talk on that.
Mhm.
And I know they haven't talked, they talked briefly a day or two ago and said, we still gotta get together and talk, so.
So, and I think too, the one frustration, and Sarah, you hit it on the head, but I continue to ask the question, isn't this a city park? Isn't this a city project? Isn't the city going to oversee the contract, the bidding, and everything else? And whether it goes out for competition or not, which it didn't, which is apparently within, and that's great, because that just draws it out farther. But, so it's a question, who decides?
It is, at the end of the day, it is city-owned land, and
Yeah.
no matter what a private entity spends on paying for something, at the end of the day,
The city.
the city's gonna own 4 new pickleball courts.
And it's gonna get more complicated too when, if the final decision is that the tennis courts are gonna go on that location, and that the school district leases that property from the city, you have another entity involved.
Oh, the new one, the new.
Yeah,
I don't think
I'm talking about.
But we've done this before, because the pool was a similar thing, it was private, the skate park was a similar thing, but it's still a city project, we're still, Mike's gonna be in charge of that project. That's not Jeff who's in charge of that project, he's certainly an input,
Right.
but that's a city park and it's a project there.
But isn't Field School property?
No,
Nope, it is 100% city property.
Yep.
We solved that one last year.
That was the first one.
and it's a dedicated park.
Okay,
And it is a dedicated park,
okay.
so.
Okay, well, I would say that, Beth and the mayor screwed up the table talk, but
You can blame it all on me, that's what you know.
I'll take some head on it too.
I think there's enough blame to go around on this.
Okay.
Okay, all right. Are we finished with our table, item number 4?
I just wanted to jump in and stir things up a bit, I'm good now.
Okay. All right, let's
You
move
said
on.
Beth, I heard Sarah, but no.
Let's move on to item 5,
Well, I-
approval
I'm-
of draft revision of the Parks, Recreation, and Tree Board bylaws. And, I think we've handed out copies of the bylaws.
I can't edit it, I can just put it
And
up on the screen.
I guess I'm gonna turn this over to Mary Dale
Thank you, Jeff.
and, Mary Dale and
Thank you.
Sarah. Would you like to go over the bylaws, the draft bylaws?
I mean, I can tell you what I changed. Is this the accepted edits, Mayor, or can you put
I
the?
believe, this is the one that you said was, whichever one you told me to print up, this is the same one that you had me print for everybody.
Yeah, so can you bring up the
You want to change it?
suggested, no, I told you, pull up the suggested edits and print the accepted edits.
Oh, they both.
So we can see where the changes were made.
Right.
What accepted edits?
We haven't accepted anything yet, but
no.
this document as
you
if
pull up
all the
suggested
edits have been suggested.
Oh,
So this is
yeah.
a clean
We want
version.
the red line.
Yeah, I don't want the clean version, though, I need to see what was
That's what
changed.
he's putting up here,
The paper copy is the draft accepted.
Right.
as if the draft,
Yeah.
nothing has
It's
been.
just a draft, it hasn't
Yes.
been approved.
Yes,
The other
We
one,
need to
this
see
one
what-
shows the physical change.
yes,
Right,
exactly.
we need to see the red
In
line.
red.
There we are.
So
Make
is
it
this-
bigger.
Is this what you would like to have?
Yes, that's
Yep.
it.
And this has all been sent out to everybody, I hope everybody's had a chance to. review
Well,
it.
you haven't had a chance because it didn't get sent out till 9 o'clock last night,
Well,
so.
Had all day today.
That's fine.
Rick?
But we can talk about it. So that hereinafter referred to as Parks Board, that was already in there based on version 1.
Okay. Roll.
Can I make a comment on that real quick?
Sure.
That's on there, but it doesn't, it's not in effect carried through the accepted draft. So we still refer to all the way through the accepted draft as Parks, Trees, and Recreation Board, rather than using the shorter version.
Oh, got it.
So my thoughts is that we just go back through and make the changes where we find the full name of the board and just.
Or we just
change
remove
it,
here
or
and
we just
after.
remove that on the red, and that would
You have
probably
to
be
search it,
easier.
replace it, whoever's doing the edit.
Well, we could search and replace it, or we could just remove the hereinafter
Yeah.
referred to as Parks Board, and then it's all good too.
Let's just take that off.
No, we wanted to do that for a reason.
To shorten it to
Because
Parks
Just to
Board?
shorten it
Yeah.
up, it's
Yeah.
a reason.
Well, we get called Parks Board a lot, too.
Okay.
It's search and replace, and it doesn't matter if it's 3 times or 103 times, it'll
Yes.
be the same amount of effort.
Okay. So let's leave it on there and do a search and change. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Great. And then the next thing, if you keep scrolling down, was in section 3 regarding attendance. We had a conversation, and I just put some verbiage together, but we had a conversation that virtual attendance is considered attendance.
Right.
So I just acknowledged that in the purple verbiage there. Is everyone okay with that wording?
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. The first, that was corrected previously, City of Red Lodge, that was added previously as well. Section 3, special meetings, that was already redlined. So the next change that I made was in section 6, related to the public hearing procedure. So we kind of decided that we didn't need to include this because it would be at a city level. However, based on our discussion right now and tonight, I actually think it would be beneficial to outline what that process looks like. I don't know.
Do you replace public hearing with input or something? So, because that was, I think, if I recall correctly, this was tied to the whole, a public hearing is something that's posted at the city level, it's noticed in the paper and everything else. Am I remembering that incorrectly?
You know what, let me comment here. I think what you're getting at, Sarah, is that in the original bylaws, it has basically the procedure, how you hold a public hearing.
Yeah,
And we removed that out of there.
well,
Because we don't do
it was
that.
suggested to remove it.
Yeah,
No, we can do it though, Mary Jo.
Well, yeah, it's not in the accepted changes, the draft accepted changes. It's not in this
Right,
anymore. We,
because it was suggested to remove it.
yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. I think, in fact, I think it was my recommendation to remove it.
Oh.
But I'm gonna go 180 on this, and I think it's probably a good idea to leave it in there so that you have in black and white the procedure of how you hold a hearing. And I think basically what we talked about on section 4 is maybe what we should have had going back on this whole tennis court pickleball thing is a public hearing, you know, to get more public input. And as we move forward, if we're looking at holding or going through another comprehensive parks master plan, public hearing should probably be a part of that process as well.
And I think
So I recommend that we put that procedure back in.
originally agreed with you because in my head, I assumed that at that point the city would take over, but the way that it's outlined up there is that the chair, the Parks Board chair, is that what I'm understanding? Would basically run the public hearing. And so I think that is a really big part of our responsibility, and to outline how we would handle that, I guess, makes sense to me, but.
Okay, I have a question. First item says, the chair opens the public hearing and places the staff report into the record by reference. I've never heard that term. What is the staff
Yeah,
report?
good question.
Is that
Chairman?
under the public
So
hearing?
staff reports are, staff will
Ann.
basically make a recommendation
Thank
and
you.
put what their logic is. We do it for planning board a lot, which is where I suspect it's probably got listed
Yeah.
from.
Yep.
So
Can
the
we-
staff reporters say, somebody's got a conditional use in, we recommend you do this.
Can I back up really quick? Do we agree that this should be outlined, first of all? If we all agree yes, then let's go through
Yeah.
and make sure it makes sense. If we don't agree that it needs to be included, then we don't need to walk through this.
Good point.
I think something needs to be included. I have
We do.
a little bit of
We
art
say we
term
can
on the
hold a
term.
public hearing.
No, but you're talking about the outline.
Yeah, so I have a term with the public hearing, because to me, that has specific meaning and connotation that I don't know is what this board
Sure.
really does.
How about a special meeting?
How about an informational meeting? That's what we're gonna do with the
You can,
PA project,
the board,
and you don't have to post it and notice it and spend money in the paper.
Roger? The reason we struck it, and I was sitting over there with you and I agreed, is because if we have an issue that needs public input, because it's a big enough deal, as an advisory board, that may still have a parks theme, but it's gonna be spearheaded by the city,
Right.
in my opinion, because as an advisory board, we can hold meetings to get information or have a special meeting, but a public hearing is, I don't know that we want, for instance, hey, everybody, come out and weigh your opinion on whether 4 tennis courts should be over there at Coal Miners Park.
Well, no, okay.
And now we open a community meeting that we should not be holding, in my opinion. It should be held at the city level because we make recommendations to them.
And those
And
efforts are all gonna
them.
be duplicated, and people are gonna feel like they voiced it and they didn't read it.
Well, and that's what I
Well-
think you're calling out, Mayor. Public hearing is different than what's outlined below.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Beth, on particularly, I'll backtrack in on the tennis court pickleball project. That's probably too small of a project to have a public hearing, but typically, master plans have public hearings. Now, the
Yeah.
question, yeah, they do, question, if we had public hearings for our growth plans, we've had public hearings for, various master
City
plans.
level,
But the question would be, is that gonna be the Parks Board's, duty to host, and their responsibility to host a public hearing if we enter into a master plan process again, or is that at the city council level, the mayor and city council level?
So what I can speak to is what happens at planning board, and there's a legal statute that says they have to have a public hearing,
Right.
but it also goes to the council to be a public hearing. So if I go back to Beth's thought process here, as I think about it, and I'm gonna throw in some Sarah here too, if we're doing anything here, it should be to move the ball forward. When we get done, we've accomplished some step,
Yep.
The reality is, all this board is gonna make is a recommendation.
Right.
And so, if everybody comes in and it's a 4-hour-long meeting and everybody says their piece, it may impact how we do the recommendation, but there's still gonna be a public hearing, and those same people are gonna all need to come and say and do the same thing over again. So I think getting input is good, but you can't, if it's something that's big enough to be a public hearing, Parks Master Plan, for example, you can't finish it and resolve it here. That's ultimately gonna go to the city and be adopted by council.
True. Yep, and,
I think we could fix all this if we say we may hold a special meeting or an informational meeting. And we change public hearing, and we have a meeting that gives us the ability, we have another meeting that's outside our monthly meeting, and we can address an agenda item, specifics.
we can always host a special meeting.
And you can even do this as part of your
Yeah.
regular meetings,
Yeah.
could you not?
You could, yes.
I don't think we don't have enough time once a month in our regular meetings. I mean, people are meeting outside of meetings, and that's not like tennis court pickleball are meeting. Like, there was a key piece of information that I've never known, that they can't play competitive tennis on 3 courts alone. I never knew that because I didn't go to those other meetings. And then it sounds like you guys have been everyone's meeting outside of meetings. So how do we control the information that's being shared and discussions happening so that everyone has the same information? Or if we really do need more time because we only have an hour and a half.
Well, in theory, those little meetings, in fact, I think Rod had volunteered to be our representative on the tennis court pickleball, and I've attended most of the meetings too. But the idea is that
Oh, let's go back to the bylaws.
well, the
please.
information this is just an example, the information that derives at those little meetings all come back here and are brought back here for a report to the.
Do we feel like that's happening? If I'm the only one that doesn't feel like that's happening, then let's move on. But Beth, you said, let's go back to
say-
bylaws. So do you
Yeah, I
feel like
think
we're fine, or?
No, I think we need to say in matters of high importance, we may hold a special meeting.
Okay, let's leave it at that.
if informational is a better word. And actually, most of everything in here that I looked, that we struck, we could bring back in. We're just gonna take out the word public hearing. And if we, in a special meeting, recommend that a public hearing should occur, it's gonna go to council. It's at their level, because that's,
Ooh, and I even
beyond my
like that,
pay
maybe one of
grade.
the outputs that we may recommend at a public
Yeah.
hearing.
Yep. Can we not use special and either do ad hoc
Informational?
or a meeting scheduled outside of a regular monthly meeting? Because special, I don't know what that
that's
means.
not what we're talking about here. We're talking about bringing a large group together for an agenda item.
Right,
Yeah.
yep. But it would be ad hoc because it wouldn't be in our regular monthly scheduled. It'd be outside of that,
I think we could say additional.
or additional, yeah, I just feel like the word
I don't think ad
special.
hoc is the right word. but
Okay, sure.
Additional.
Project specific?
Like, what are you trying to imply thus with the word special, I guess, is what I'm trying to clarify.
I like Mike's informational term,
Mhm.
informational meeting. and then-
Matters of high importance, the Parks, Trees, and Rec Board the Parks Board, because we're gonna reduce that, may hold an informational meeting as determined by Parks Board Chair and city staff, and maybe we add to that, to address an item, well, we already said, of matters of high
I think,
importance.
yeah,
It's
I don't
right
think we
there.
need, yeah, I don't think we need
You can get
anything
really
more.
verbose,
Yep,
and then we can leave that in there, but it's not a public hearing, and we could say at the end that the chair may recommend that a public hearing be provided by the city,
Is that the chair or is that the whole
That
park
would be
board?
the whole Parks Board.
Parks Board.
Yeah,
He's thinking,
Okay,
okay.
Willie.
all right, so, may hold an informational meeting,
And I
not
did it.
public hearing,
He came back.
But
right?
But I think you probably don't
Oh,
have the word additional, because it's a meeting in addition to your monthly meeting.
I think that's,
I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
thank you. I
Thanks,
think-
Mike.
Don't leave me.
You don't need me, you don't want my.
Thanks, Barb.
Thanks, Barb,
Bye,
thanks,
guys.
Mike.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all. Thank you.
It's not our regular scheduled business meeting, it's an informational meeting. It's in addition to our
Well,
business
every
meeting.
meeting's an informational meeting.
It's a business meeting, we conduct business, we accept an agenda.
Do we have the verbiage for this?
I mean, minutes, we vote on minutes, that makes it a business meeting.
I'm not leaving. Okay. Just moving.
You're just moving.
So in matters of high
I think we
importance,
get-
the Parks Board may hold an informational meeting as determined by the Parks Board Chair and city staff, and may recommend to the city to hold a public hearing. Do we want to put that in?
No, that would be down at the end.
Oh,
So
So you're keeping-
we would take A through F,
yeah,
we'd bring it back in,
okay,
okay.
all right.
Clean it up so it doesn't say public hearing, it says
Yeah.
informational meetings.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the end, it says, after all discussion is ended, or the chair has determined sufficient time has been spent on the issue, which means you get to cut it off,
I'm cutting
like
it off
this,
right now.
she will entertain a motion concerning the agenda item,
Okay, so. we
which
want-
may include, it doesn't have to say anymore, it's all in there.
Okay, so we put all that back in, just take out public hearing.
And add
put in
informational.
Informational meeting, okay,
It's clear to me that it's not our regular scheduled Wednesday meeting.
right.
As long as it's clear to everybody else.
Well, yeah, it's how do we, does it say how to publicize it? Maybe it does.
I mean, when you write these things, you have to also write them for people who aren't involved in this board, so they clearly understand
I
what
don't
the
care,
board
you
is
can say
doing.
an additional informational meeting.
Thank you.
All right.
You still with us, Luke?
Are we moving on?
We are,
No, Luke's drinking.
we'll-
Luke's drinking now.
We're-
We'll address this
where are we now,
again
Sarah?
at our next meeting,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll send them out sooner though. I think that might have been the only other things that I adjusted were Roger and Beth's name. What was that, Luke?
Nothing.
Oh,
Still there, okay, good.
Luke is probably getting a beer.
Why would you say that?
'Cause I just said, I hope he's having a drink.
If he's on the
Good
road, it's
stuff.
because he's being a pirate, and I hope he's not.
Yep,
So,
yep.
Art,
He's
have you
right.
gone through it? Okay, so we're gonna bring this back
Yep.
for one more review and approval.
With one set of red lines.
Yeah, why would there be more than
Well,
one
because we
set?
have red and we have blue
Oh, yeah,
now.
have
You could make
purple.
them all red.
Right.
I like the periwinkle.
Oh.
You had your attendance maybe fulfilled, that was in a different
That was-
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh,
you
guys.
Make them one color.
Why,
Make
why
them one
was
color.
it, what was
I don't
the
even,
color?
whatever, I'm not gonna,
Because-
I'm not spending any time on that.
Sarah added, yeah, whatever.
All right.
I don't care what.
All the
Let's-
edits are in one document. I'll try and make them all the same color.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Let's move on.
Okay.
thanks for texting, Mary Dell.
Okay, we are at item 7, updating the park ambassador.
I have a question. I hate to do this. You guys finished Public 6. There's a whole lot more pretty colors underneath that still.
Those were all done before, so those have already all been approved.
So changes are gonna be in red.
Okay.
Alright. Item 7, updating the park ambassador assignments and responsibilities. So we have had problems trying to,
Wait, we totally skipped 6.
oh, we did, yes. Discussion with possible action,
Wishful thinking.
need to update the 2015 Comprehensive Parks Master Plan.
Yeah.
Our park master plan is 10 years old. We're having, requests from the public for recreation pursuits that probably didn't even exist or didn't exist in Red Lodge, at least back in 2015, such as pickleball. The community has changed in the last 10 years. I think the board needs to decide, is it time? Usually 10 years it's about the maximum amount of time the master plan is effective. Is it time, and should we be looking at the possibility or making a recommendation to the city council that we should be entering into an updated master plan process so we can move forward? I think we're seeing the problems right now are pretty evident that our master plan is probably not sufficient anymore.
I don't know
Comments?
what a master plan is or what ours looks like.
It's
And I just went
online.
up to the parks page to see if I could
Great.
find it.
I have a copy of it online here. But if you want to take time to look at our current plan and bring this back to another meeting, we can do that. I can send the comprehensive parks plan out to each one of you.
I can find that.
Do we have it online?
So-
Do you know?
Yeah, it's online. You can go to the city's website, hold it.
I'm on it behind you and not finding it, I guess is the,
Well,
I went Parks and Recreation.
Rod, are you done? You haven't said much all night.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I think we need a master
He's
plan
like,
for
when's
sure,
my
but I don't know
term
how
up?
much time we have to discuss our master plan.
well, I don't think I think the question is, do we think we should make a recommendation?
Yeah.
I make a motion that we revisit the master plan.
You seconded it. I second that motion.
And what I'm gonna say on that is, the master plan document is big. And that may require an additional special informational meeting just to cover that.
And you realize that the Parks Board and the city didn't do it, they paid Great West to do
Of
it.
course, that's what you do. You
Right.
always hire a consultant
Okay.
to do those things.
So,
And that's, it has,
I
it
would
has
like-
budget implications.
I would like to have a discussion about this. So, without us knowing, and I'm not a control freak, so don't take it like I need to be a control freak. There were several groups in this town that went to Red Lodge Community Foundation and participated in a very large $2 million grant to get funding to build expensive projects on parks, space. And it seems odd to me that we never knew that we might have a sledding hill with water making. It's all cool, but I never heard that. I never heard that we have formalized and told ICE that they can build a refrigerated rink
No.
at Lions. I'm all for it, actually, but at some point, if we're gonna do our job well in here as an advisory committee, we need to have a procedure, or the city says, no, you guys don't get to be involved in that one, and you do get to be involved in this one, because it's not similar. So I'm gonna bring up soccer field, because it's one of our last, I will say, big
Large
projects
scale, yeah.
on park space, and because because I was the person doing the fundraising and the engineering coordination, all that, it was my baby for 13 years. I can tell you that it was laborious and it didn't need to be, and then when it got down to maybe the last 3 years, things happened like this. The city gave us the ability to investigate putting a soccer field at the top of coal miners. That's what I would like to see with tennis. They get to investigate it. Will it drain? We had to do test pits up on top of the old landfill. We had to have an engineering company, and we got a grant through DNRC, and the city helped us with that. We didn't have to pay for it, but we got test pits and borings done to make sure that if you built a soccer field and spent a lot of money building it, it wasn't gonna like buckle and sway and all that. They said, no, engineering-wise, we're good with it. So we met number one hurdle. I think tennis courts has a hurdle. House drainage. I love the new terraced concept because I don't like trying to fill that whole area in. It seems really expensive. But I'm hearing this on the street.
Haven't heard that.
Neither have
I don't know about it otherwise.
That's what I'm saying.
So there's, and unfortunately for Barb and Jeff, there has been personality stuff getting in because, quite honestly, pickleball gets their needs met, boom.
Yeah.
And tennis is nebulous. So I'm a little sensitive to their concern, wherever they may end up, because I don't know if it'll be there. Maybe they'll end up somewhere else. But that, I believe pickleball is acting a little bullyish on the side, and I don't really like it, but I feel like, well, what can we do about it? Because we're calling it a maintenance project. And they raised money, and they're doing it. So I hope we have a format by where they just realize that at the end of the day, like soccer, so we had to meet engineering needs, then we got permission to design a field. We didn't get permission to build it, remember, Rod? We got permission to design it, and once everybody agreed that the design looked good, we got permission to build it. It was a 3-phase thing. That's probably what some projects need to go through, others don't need to be that bad, right?
Well, and if we're gonna have essentially 3 viable tennis courts that, can be used for tennis, why don't we just build one more court at Fields?
Because that doesn't give pickleball dedicated.
And there's not
Six.
room, well, unless you start taking away green space and going to the south.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
was
we're taking
one of the
green
things they
space
talked,
at coal mines.
yeah, but it's not in the middle of downtown.
No.
Okay, but I want to keep us on track.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that right now. Sorry,
Okay.
Mary Dell.
Yeah.
We
So-
just end up going down this road.
Right, so back to the
We do
master
need to.
plan.
We do need to, but,
Sarah, thank you.
yeah.
Back to the master plan, I think we need to update some of these things that have come to play. And what is the city's vision for the parks? Not just that user groups come at us with their own idea and, oh, well, you got here at this meeting first, you get your project.
I think that's the biggest confusion and frustration for me, is just because they come and present doesn't mean that we've approved
Right, and that's
anything.
why we wanted this on the agenda about tennis, because if we're doing our job, we should at least say, hey, we think it's good for the city to consider this space for investigation.
Okay, we're going back and we're talking about an item that we tabled again.
All right,
Yeah.
So
sorry.
let's get back to the master plan.
But-
Now, just a second here.
Okay.
What's the matter?
In a master
Aren't
plan,
we talking about how?
you could put in, you could have your consultants, and you're right, consultants are the ones that build the master plan, but they get that from the input from the community, the information. You could request that a master plan includes a proper policy or procedure of how projects are undertaken, a system that you have to go through. I don't know if that's what you're getting at, Beth, is part of it to be included in the master plan?
Yes,
But-
that's why I
But let's
keep
talk
going back
about,
and
do
forth.
we feel like we need to update our master plan? If we don't, if we think the master plan is fine, you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I feel
Maybe-
like I would need to review it
Maybe we
before I
all-
could make that
maybe we
decision,
need
and
to
I'm
just
sorry that I
Table
haven't.
this project until
Well, it needs to be
everybody's had a
revisited.
chance to look at it.
I made a motion
And
to
let's-
revisit it.
And let's come back and talk about it the next
I
meeting.
second her motion.
Okay.
Can I
Table.
suggest something in the meantime? I mean, maybe we have this conversation in
Actually,
August,
Ann
and so
already
maybe
did.
there isn't, but, is it worth, like, if there's public comments or tennis and pickleball come and they're presenting something to us, is it worth identifying before they're speaking, like, is there an action or decision item that needs to happen? I mean, oftentimes people are just coming, like Teresa today that just gave an update. Or I feel like when Barb initially brought that to the group, it was just, hey, a heads up, we're moving forward with this, we're doing this.
Mhm.
So is there a point of clarification that could be made to say, is this something that needs to be voted on? Is it just informational purposes? I don't know.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a good point too. I think what we need to have on our, discussion items, we need to have whether it's an action or discussion item.
Yeah,
And they can be.
yeah, maybe it's just on the
And
agenda.
it can be a discussion with possible action too.
Okay.
All right. We have a motion to table. Second. All those in
Wait,
favor say aye.
wait.
Wait a minute, we have a motion to
Table what?
You made a motion to
Master
table.
plan,
No, I made a motion that we revisit the 2015 master plan,
Okay,
and Ann seconded it.
okay.
That was so long ago, I forgot.
She did, no, she
Mary
did
Dale
first, because I have it in my notes. All right, Mary Dell wants to do it. Mary Dell wants to do it.
And since I have to look up this, this is when Ann gets to vote it or not, go with Mary Dale.
Okay, all right.
Okay,
All those in favor say aye.
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 We're just talking about revisiting it.
Yeah.
I know, we're spicy tonight.
We heard you, Luke.
July.
I guess so, fireworks.
All right,
But you know what I'm grinning, or what I'm over here grinning about? Because as I sit down and look at kind of what my goals are in 3 years, when Dave is done, to me, whether I was successful in my role is after I leave, if everything moves better, and if we've laid it all out. So like I said, this is good. If we can get all this plan laid out so stuff goes on smoothly and in the future, that's why I'm
It's
excited.
gonna take us a year to figure it out.
all right. I'm excited if we can get to item 7. I'll be
Okay.
excited. Updating the park ambassador assignment and responsibility, be called the park owner plan.
All right, so Amy put together a sheet. I cannot figure out what that is in. I should see if you.
Where is Google Docs?
It is, and it doesn't let you save it, open it, print it, do anything. So she used to bring these big,
Maybe you don't have rights to it.
all right, she brought these big beasts in here, and I still have it. And I think we should quickly do nothing else but to go down and assign or reassign in lieu of time.
And at one of our meetings, it was brought up that you do not have to be a Parks Board member.
Yep,
Right.
To be a ambassador for a park.
just
That's
means
true.
you give a
That's right. First,
we had to
find out where Creekside Park is.
I know where Creekside Park is, I can go give you a detour.
It's largely washed away, I think.
It's where everybody, the swimming hole, Ann, it's the swimming hole behind the, storage units.
Let me go over who I have on this list, and you can say yay or nay, or we can change it. Because that list is old, some of those people are no
Yep.
longer here.
Okay,
So if we start, and I think everybody has a copy of this, and you have a copy?
I do, actually.
Okay, so if you have a copy of the what I put together earlier today, the 2025 Red Lodge Park Ambassador spreadsheet. It's Coal Miners Park, I have Beth Graham,
And Luke Russell, Luke joined,
And-
2 months ago.
so it's gonna be both of you,
Agreed.
Yep.
okay? You okay with that, Luke?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay. Creekside Park, I have vacant. Is there anybody who wants to volunteer for that park? Or do we want to find somebody from outside of our board?
So Creekside Park is on hold because it's kind of, flood FEMA city related.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, does
I-
anybody want to be the ambassador?
No, thanks.
No, thank you.
I'll do it.
You-
Doesn't seem like a lot to
Okay.
do.
Rod,
Hey, I found the 2015, it's comprehensive parks plan if you go looking for it.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Rod, you volunteered for
And I've got,
Creekside?
I'll tell you what, you won't have to look for it.
How many-
Tomorrow I'll send it out to everybody.
How many pages?
It's big. Okay, so Creekside Park is Rod, Double Ditch
Okay.
Dog Park,
That's
Okay.
Ann now.
okay?
We
So
traded.
you are off it, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
why did you tell me that?
Okay, Field Park,
Oh.
Well, it was a
Field
suggestion.
School Park is Rod still.
Yep.
Okay, we're moving on,
We're gonna
guys.
vote on it.
Finn Park, I have that
Well, we didn't
one.
like formally discuss, so I just wanted.
Hill Roaring Skate Park, Rod, I have,
Yeah, you had me down for that, but there was somebody else that was interested in that, I thought.
I was just interested just because they need an old crone over there hanging around, you know, but it's near my house, it's near my house.
All right, Ann,
I would be
And-
happy to.
so, and it's you. What'd you call yourself?
Old crone.
Old Crow,
All
okay.
the kids need an old crone telling them what to do.
Okay.
Wear your helmet.
The Highway 120, and I looped it, I combined it with
Amy,
the roundabout, that was
Huey's
Amy.
been given some love, so maybe she'll be an ambassador.
Okay, and that is really
Amy.
not looking good right now.
Is she, yeah,
she pointed out, oh, we should have brought that up
Oh,
to
yeah.
Mike. Pointed out that
Yeah.
it must not be
Which
watering.
one was it I blinked, I'm sorry?
The Highway 120 in the roundabout area, it's
Oh.
really getting weedy looking again.
I would do it at 1 o'clock in the morning when I'm safe, but no
Yeah.
other time is safe.
Yeah.
Well, we put, and I was gonna kind of get to it before the 4th, and I didn't. Because that's what happened last year, is me and Amy went and we did it,
Well,
and with a bunch of other people.
does somebody want to approach Amy, see if
I
she still
can
wants to do it? Okay.
She has said she has an interest in it, actually.
Okay.
she's got a big interest. She's spent some time down there this year, quite a bit.
Roundabout is considered, I think.
She pointed a lot of the pollinators,
And
I
I would
just
be
don't
happy,
understand
I'd be happy
pollinators
to
in
go
a
out and pull
traffic
weeds with
circle.
her.
Your
Lions
bees
Park,
will hang out in the traffic.
we have,
That's a really good point.
Sarah,
Very good
your,
point.
your Lions Park.
Yes.
okay, so I had Ann, so I'm gonna replace, scratch out. And put Sarah, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna convince Madeline to come
Okay.
alongside me.
I don't know if y'all noticed, that's been cleaned up since last Friday, it's
Yeah.
beautiful,
Looks a lot better.
it's all terrific.
Yep. McGill and Airport Trails. Luke, I have your name on there, is
Yeah,
that
it
correct?
was pulled out last Friday.
That sounds great to me.
Okay.
Yep.
I added pool, and Rod and I were just having a little sidebar discussion on that. You know, maybe we should just leave that for Mike.
Okay.
I mean, he's a staff member and,
And there's not much.
Right, well, he takes care of it, yeah.
he takes. care of
However,
it.
we are supposed to, we did agree to oversee
Yeah, we can
it
still
as
do
a
that.
parks,
That doesn't mean we
Right.
still don't oversee it. Mike is there on the day-to-day handling of that.
Mike Maples, question mark, okay,
Okay.
Pride Park.
Pride Park, we have Mary Dell. Is that correct? Rotary Park, I have Rotary Park. Van Dyke Park in Mary Dell again. Okay, now, I'm gonna rely on you people that have been on this board much longer than I to talk about what is the role of the owner or the ambassador? What do we do?
So when Amy wanted us to, and it was good, because what we felt like before we did this is that we were getting caught up in talking about specific projects and not being familiar with what all the parks were and having having it brought into every meeting. So literally, we had like, wasn't it, Rod? We had like 30 seconds to talk in the meeting about your park. It wasn't meant to be more than 5 minutes.
Yep.
Highlight needs, it was our ability to bring forward concerns or, interact with the planner, who could then forward information to Public Works or the city, because we didn't have Mike and the mayor sitting in our meetings, which is great. The ambassador's role was to care enough about the park that they visited it and had eyes on it from time to time, and were aware. If there was a project going on, then they were sort of the point person in the Parks Board that, for instance, baseball could call me about putting in a batting cage. That was before Mike came on, and then things kind of went directly to Mike. But I still think it's a great way for us to briefly bring things up as they come up.
And I guess, if nothing else too, I mean, I think that's a really good, description, I think, of what the ambassadors or owners.
I like the ambassador, we used owner,
Yeah,
but I think ambassador is a better
I
word.
think it is too.
Yeah.
And, we talked about park cleanup. I've been in conversations with, Rotary Club, a little bit about having a annual cleanup at the Rotary Park. But that could be another role of that ambassador, is to try to get those kind of events going, right?
Yeah, I think it
may.
you put a more familiar face out, interfacing with the people that are using those parks, and they get to know a person on the Parks Board, and makes the relationships better. As far as responsibilities, I think it's as simple as visit your parks, and communicate when there's special projects going on there. You're gonna have a little more going on with field school.
Contact Mike.
Yeah.
Rod's on the tennis court discussion, because he was field school park, and then when that came up with pickleball and tennis, he hopped on. Sarah, I would assume that you will have an ear out now more for what is ICE thinking that they might do at Lions, and I know they're forming a committee.
Yep.
And so it's a way to bring something back here and then report on it. I think your responsibility is to just ears and eyes open for your park.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Any questions? Now, the chart that we've used in the past that Amy put together has an area there that talks about needs, what needs to be done in those parks. You really think it's important to have that in the
Okay.
chart? Because that's gonna become old news, fairly quickly.
Yeah, and remember, we didn't have the setup where Mike was basically on our board.
Right.
And we didn't have Public Works coming here, so we had a liaison through the city planner or the associate planner or the community development person, to then relay, ask, see if work got done,
Yeah.
report back.
So all we really need now is a spreadsheet with the designated ambassadors, so we all know and remember what park we're responsible for.
I wouldn't mind another column, whether it's
Okay.
needs or projects going on, like field, school, tennis, pickleball. Obviously, we all know that's going on, but just to keep tabs on it and keep eyes on it. And then the only other thing with the needs, if it's necessary, that's good too, yeah.
The user group list is important.
I've got user group on here.
Yeah, and then MOU status.
Yep.
Okay.
Is there any need, and maybe we don't run into this issue anymore because of Mike, if there's if there's a need that requires funding that isn't happening now or is proposed for future, but maybe Mike just gets it right away now and he's
Yeah.
presenting it, I don't.
Well, but going back to your whole, and the master plan sort of thing, quite frankly, it's like Pride Park, we're looking into that, we look at it from but we're looking at it in a vacuum. We're not looking at it as part of that. That's why I said, these others, I won't mention them because they're tabled, but there are concrete examples, but like I said, I got 6 of those where I'm going, oh crap, I got this, Lions Park, that's gonna happen, this is gonna happen, Pride Park. When did we just, I mean, and council's approving it from a budget standpoint, you know, it's like, that's almost after the ship has left the dock, that we're having those
Well, you know,
conversations.
this is, again, we're straying here a little bit. But what I will say is that some of the problem, I think, is the definition between what is a project, a new project, and what is maintenance.
Well, you have that great list,
And,
you know,
yeah,
do
and,
it now.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Negative
we
project.
kind of need to go back to that.
And it needs to not be whoever showed up last and pitched their story last.
Exactly.
Because,
Right.
you know, this land down here, I got 4 different interested parties. Ultimately, to me, that's a council decision.
Yeah.
But what's the structure and format that we do to how we do
Right.
that?
Right.
You know, if I was Mike, I would say I'd want the flexibility of just doing my thing and not have, you know, let people kind of get out of my way to a certain extent. And Pride Park is an example of that, you know? It needs some work. It's just gonna take care of it. Do we need to make a recommendation to the city
We-
council if they do that? No. I
We
don't
already
think so.
have, if you go back through the minutes,
We didn't. We didn't make a recommendation on Pride Park.
But is it changing the way that it's being used?
No.
Then we don't need to make a
Exactly.
recommendation. We don't need to vote on it,
Exactly.
based on the
And-
mayor's.
And things are deteriorating,
Again, I don't count, remember?
things are deteriorating, they're not
You came up
changing
with
the
the
use of the park.
No, it's maintenance. Just,
Yeah,
it's maintenance.
yeah, and I don't think we need to micromanage everything.
No, exactly.
I'm just gonna say it, Mayor, I think if tennis courts are gonna go, if we're gonna turn a spaces green into a big flat surface, I do think that maybe a community informational meeting is in the works.
An additional.
Additional informational meeting is in the works, and it might be at the city level.
And I
And,
think the same for Lions Park.
and Lions
Yeah.
Park,
Without a doubt.
because there are people,
Even
when we
more so.
say, we're so protective of Field School, I find this very interesting. Oh, we can't put more cars on the parking, we can't take away that green space, we can't put cars on the road, there's no parking, it's not good for those homeowners. When have we ever said that for Lions Park area?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the same thing to me.
It is exactly the same thing.
People that look out their front window and see a green space over there are gonna see a concrete slab.
Okay,
Are
Yes,
we,
ma'am.
you're not gonna adjourn, are you?
getting close to it.
Well, okay, I just wanna slip in before we adjourn.
Okay.
Okay,
This has been very interesting today, folks. One thing to maybe get around that problem of, that we insist, we have 12 meetings a year, which I'm guessing maybe is not enough. But we insist a user group come to one meeting, a year and tell us what they're doing. And 2 or 3 people in this group, in the user group, have to come and tell us, because they're doing things that we don't know they're doing. And you know, we're pretty easygoing, but we should get maybe some people on the carpet and say, what are you doing? Not on the carpet, but you know.
right,
Hold
Bring
them
it in.
responsible,
Yeah.
because this ICE thing was just, you know, that's just a good example.
So if I go to the list of user group contacts in that 2015 master plan, there's 30.
Yeah.
Okay, well then,
I'm just
we did pare it down to the top 12. There's, I mean, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we're having not communicating, and people are getting away with murder because they're not coming to talk to us.
Is there any sort of check and balance on the city level to, like, did you guys approach Parks Board, for example? I don't know if that's what's happening. Well, like, for example, the ICE stuff. Like, if you say they're approving a budget,
Well, and there's budget stuff, but like I said, that's
I'm
the
trying to
problem.
help your
I'm kind of
cause,
looking at it
and in
So
different ways,
There's a
yeah.
lot of this stuff that historically has been the mayor and or staff, and I don't think that's the appropriate spot. I want more checks and balances, which is why you go to council, that's their job.
yeah.
And so that, I'm really trying to get away from just making it, and that's on everything. You know, that's on, are we gonna have a carnival in town? Are we gonna do a update, are we gonna do an ice rink? That's not a person's
Right. No, I know,
No
but I'm
matter who that
saying,
person is, because people change out and they become weirdos.
well, I don't think it should be a person. I think it should be more than one person, but I'm just saying, like, is the city, if they get approached for something, are they just taking it and running with it, assuming that they've done their due diligence to come to Parks Board?
I'd like to think so, but I think there's opportunity for improvement. And like I said, as I just sit down and look at all the stuff that I realized, these are conversations that I've been aware of, even tangentially, and then I would say, wait, hold on. What about?
The reason?
Yeah, pardon?
Well,
Ann, I think that's a great idea. I think
it's
that it
good.
wouldn't hurt us
I think it's a good
to
idea.
pick one or two user groups, say, we'd like you to come 5 minutes, update,
Yeah,
and it also gives us the opportunity to say, well, you do have a MOU and that thing hasn't been signed in 18 years.
Okay, that's the other
And guess
thing.
what? We could pull your user group status if we don't get it done.
well, Beth, you know, and on top of that, it gives them an opportunity to let us know some of the concerns that they may have, you know.
Right.
And so I think it's a two-way street. I
That's-
think it's a
we'd
really
make
good
it look
idea.
that way.
It's all about accountability.
Yeah, I like it too, yeah.
They need to know us, and we need to know them, and that we exist, and they can't just do what carte blanche, what they wanna do at their, yeah.
Well, and just because they didn't come to us, that we're not willing to take into account something that they might want, you know?
Yeah, but they're doing, you know, just an example, softball put a pole right in the middle of a disc golf thing. I mean, just,
Oh.
That,
Well, it's an example.
that's an
that
example.
is, and that was that's kind of sad when that happened.
Yes.
And we were telling, and Mike was working with them on that batting cage. We didn't know there's a hole there,
Yeah.
because if you don't use that course, there was no formality in that hole being there.
It's on them too, to make themselves more,
Right.
Well, and that was,
visible.
that was part of it.
We know
because-
how you feel about that.
Well, no, I'm just saying that that's one of those things that, and did we do a motion to have disc golf expanded? Was there a formal motion or action?
Not to
No.
expand,
No.
we said they could go to the city, or they could present to the
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
That's not how
I
we.
didn't have a recommendation to.
I don't think we took
think-
action on it.
I think we did take action, and it was
What's the last meeting?
approved to move on to another
To-
step.
You mean
Come up
the
to the
minutes
city.
that we just
Exactly.
approved? Yeah, but I did add that. It basically said, we voted 5-0 to recommend that the golf course be expanded
And moved
to
the
include
city.
18 holes and 3 additional
And
practice
that was at the
holes.
last meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, and moved to the city.
Thorson made a motion to recommend proposed disc golf plan improvements to the city council for their consideration, which I
Right.
added that a little bit. Russell seconded, motion passed 5-0.
That's what
So,
happened.
Yeah.
so Mayor, I have a question for you.
Okay,
Sorry, did I type it wrong somewhere else?
After that happens, when this board makes a,
We approved
a
it.
formal
They asked if they could bring it to the
motion
city, and we approved
and
that.
to make a recommendation to the city council, what is the process from there?
I would say somebody needs
So I
to
just-
forward those motions
Got it,
on, so
got
we
it,
get them
got it,
worked
got it.
into the
So is
agenda.
that, who does that? Is that staff? Is
I
that?
didn't
No,
realize,
I would say
I
it's
didn't
you.
realize there was a
Okay.
question about how.
Forward it
was
on,
phrased.
and I would say,
Got
who
it.
I would probably send it to is the land use and plan, given the nature of it, is probably the land use and planning chair, which is Chelsea Tupin. Or if you send it to me, but we ought, and I know, like I said, Tuesday's gonna be we've got one item, but, oh, trust me, it's gonna take the block, right?
Because I think last time when we had a recommendation, Chelsea brought it to the city council. I can't remember what that was.
Yeah, and
That was about
So
events being
light-
held at Pride Park.
Oh, yeah, choose them up, yeah, choose.
Yeah.
what's that?
So, I
And
think
by
it's
the
in
way,
our,
Kudos to her on how she handled that, it's a different story another day, but you talk about the system working,
Yeah,
she was brilliant.
okay, good.
okay,
Because
so
just
I
wanna know
think that
if-
it is in our jurisdiction to point out, use these words in a meeting when we say we recommend something, is to make it clear that that user group or activity needs to provide a written resolution that will go to city council for their acceptance.
Okay, now that's a question I have. The user group is gonna adopt or is going to create a resolution for the city council? Or does,
Or do you
Does the
guys
chair-
do it, or?
No, we don't write it. Teresa Whistler wrote hers, I wrote the one for the soccer field. I mean, there's templates and you
Okay,
say,
so the user group needs to.
the resolution says what has to be in it. I think that's in your
And then what
terms.
you do is they bring them here,
No?
they bring it to you
um,
and you say, yes, we recommend you go to city council with that resolution?
Yeah,
Oh,
It seems like that'd be the way to go.
I think that's what.
That's what happened in both those cases, but,
So that's what should have happened with disc golf then.
I don't remember seeing a resolution.
no, what you
on my
should have,
side here.
no, I think what you did is, but I would have gone one step further. You realize you need to draft a resolution to come back here and specifically say what you were gonna do. 'cause
Yeah.
that's not in a plan when they do
Well,
a presentation.
Yeah.
Here's the resolution, it's written, and then, because the lawyer proves it.
well, here's the reason I'm
After
asking.
you agree.
Here's why I'm asking that question. I think it really comes down to what does the city council want? Do they want us to do the resolution? Do they want the user group to do the resolution? Do they want first a recommendation along with that? I mean, because here's what happened with the last, case with the Whistler Observatory and their tree planting. There was a little bit of delay in that, from the time that we approved their plan to when it really got to the city council. And I want to make sure that those kind of delays, aren't caused by me or whoever's the chair of not, following through with a recommendation to the council.
When you say there was a delay, was there that much of it, or are we
Yeah, there
talking like
was,
a month or
yeah.
two? Because there's generally
About
gonna
a
be
month,
we
about-
talk about it, and then we have the action, so that's normal course of things. But, and to Beth's point, Teresa brought a resolution, and I worked with council, and so the resolution we got, in fairness, wasn't exactly what was brought forward, but it was a starting point. And I'm gonna go back to it, the way to get things done is hand them a package. It's way easier to be an editor than it is to be a composer.
Sure.
And it happens on a more accelerated time plan. But if they bring in a resolution, because I was on council when your soccer stuff came in,
Yep.
and I'm sure that probably got tweaked at council level, or they changed this or that.
That's fine. What I want to make sure is that there is a process, and the process doesn't, we don't get a gap in the process because somebody's
Right.
not,
If we fix the
doing their
process,
job.
the rest of this stuff's gonna magically happen, take care of it.
Roger, I don't think it's your job to write the resolution. I think we tell the user group to draft
Okay,
one
that's-
for our review.
Okay,
And it has to, because they could throw things in there that they want, and we say, well, no, that isn't what we're
But we-
recommending.
we didn't review
Or not
Teresa's
enough.
resolution. I think Teresa's resolution went right through the council.
Yeah, and it should have come in sooner to,
We didn't redo it.
Well, we can set a new process now. I think
Yeah.
that's why we're
I
talking
just
about
wanna
it,
make sure,
so.
'cause
Part of the master plan.
And I want,
Yeah.
and I want the user groups to know that they have to do that. And if they say, okay, well, we gotta, you approved our request and there's a recommendation, nothing happens, they go, well, that's because you didn't do a resolution. Oh, I didn't know I had to do a resolution, I just.
and they can even bring that as part of their initial presentation. There's nothing that says it has to happen sequentially.
well, we don't want them thinking because we, made a recommendation, it's a done deal.
Yeah.
Either.
That they still have to do the-
They need to know it has to go through the city council.
Teresa did that, but Teresa's a little savvy. She's been on,
Right.
she's
She
been
was
on
on the
council
city
before,
council,
she's
yeah.
been on the planning department,
Right.
planning commission,
Mhm.
And I suspect with almost all of these user groups, that the resolution that gets submitted by user group is gonna probably need some editing before.
Well,
it
sure.
goes.
Sure.
Whereas this is the most wonderful thing in the entire planet, and everybody agrees that this is what we should do, like, well, no, that's actually not what the whereas is gonna say.
The meeting's adjourned.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say
Yeah.
something,
The city doesn't have to-
since it's never stopped me before. I
Hang
think
on
we need
just
to
a minute.
think about meeting more than once a month, like 4 times a year. I mean, we just,
Monthly plus a
7:30, we
quarterly.
haven't gotten a lot done. I think just every once in a while, meet twice a month. And then, I'm gonna I'm gonna get for Janae, we get the MOUs, for the parks, and then I can pass those out to y'all. I won't be here August 6th, 'cause I'm celebrating my mother's 100th birthday.
Oh,
Oh,
So,
good for
I won't
you.
be here, but I'll try to get them to you before I leave for Florida.
Okay.
But that's, I think in those I didn't know it, ICE, Lions Club has MOU, the ICE has MOU. so.
We all know that though, Ann.
Yeah, it's just because,
It's just because you're new to the group here,
Well, you
but every user group has to sign something about what their responsibilities are and what the city does.
Well,
There
right.
almost should be an annual
They're all
review of it.
expired, I'm sure.
And
Yeah.
there's all sorts of them that are not consistent, or
Yeah.
they're not there. We go in and find out, like you said, it hasn't been signed in 5 years, or,
But Roger, that's what we can say to the user group is, you need to draft a resolution, the city can tell you what needs to go in it, or we can. And it has the where, what, how, why, and then that you should start drafting an MOU. And they draft it, the user group usually drafts the MOU, and then the city, and we have templates all over the place, and then we mark it up.
Well, and I'm sure it'd have to go to the city attorney for his review. too.
Yeah, 'cause it's a signed contract.
Yeah. All right.
There's,
are you really adjourned now? I haven't clicked in yet, so.
Lou, one,
Yeah,
one,
we're
two,
adjourned.
3, 4, 5, 6,
Thanks,
7.
Lou.
I want 7 copies of